Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a very special guest. He's been on my YouTube channel many a times already, and his name is Ahmad Jooma. Yes, him again. And today we are discussing how to stay true to yourself when you're starting to date or when you are already in a relationship. And this is a super important topic, at least it is for me. I have a tendency in relationships to forget about myself, and I'm sure that some of you will definitely resonate with me. I hope you watched my last vlog on Corfu. Corfu was beautiful and I wish I was there right now. My next trip is Paris, so stay tuned for another vlog, definitely. But in the meantime, here is some relationship advice. So without further ado, let's get into it. Don't forget to subscribe and support my channel. Please let me know what is it that you want me to talk about. But for people who are going to be watching us on YouTube, this is Ahmad Jooma. He is my fiance, and he's been my best relationship ever. He runs a podcast called Authentic Dating Series with his buddy David. And this is what they talk about, authentic dating. But it's also about building strong relationships. And they specialize in helping men. So basically I've asked Ahmad to come on today's meeting because he has a wealth of information to share with the world. That he regularly shares with men, and but that same information is very valuable for us women as well, because as him being a man, he can definitely give us some insider tips on how these fuckers function, because I was telling Ahmad yesterday in the car, a lot of men feel that they don't understand how women function. And they're like, my God, these are like completely different creatures. Please tell us how they function so that we can get into a relationship and move on with our lives. Women actually also feel that about men. So for a lot of women, they're like, oh my God, I don't understand how men function. They don't have feelings, or they don't seem to have any feelings. They don't understand me. I don't know how to communicate with men without looking like I'm oversensitive or all that kind of stuff. So I think what I would love is for Ahmad to kind of like bridge the gap between men and women, because we're all human beings and we are the same. Actually, we all have feelings. We all want to be in meaningful relationships with a partner that we love and that we can open our heart to. So this is not just something that women want, but it is also something that men actually want, believe it or not. So without further ado.
Thank you. So to begin with, I'll just recap a bit about my past. So as you know, Ahmad Jooma, podcast has been going for almost 3 years now. It's called the Authentic Dating Series. And it is all about teaching, we predominantly focus on men. And the reason why is because we feel like this is an education that a lot of men don't have, and it's around really understanding emotional intelligence and what drives our actions, and how what we feel is really a driver for who we are and how we show up in the world. But prior to starting the podcast, I was coaching men for over 10 years ago. Hala, I think you remember some of those days from a long time ago when I used to challenge myself daily. I used to be out and about and really pushing the boundaries, like socially, to try and find like what makes someone really good at relating to others, what helps to build really good connections. So the other thing I want to point out as well, which I think plays a huge part in this, is that culturally I was raised in a strict religious family. And I feel this played a huge role in my understanding of what it takes to have a life where you know what you want and what you're going for, which I'll get into in a second. So the first thing I want to do is actually define relationships. So because I think it's interesting. We all talk about relationships and we talk about dating, and really relationships are all like they're happening all the time, like everywhere, right? Like you guys have a relationship with Chloe, you have a relationship with your parents, and then there's the relationship that you form with someone romantically, with a lover, or you get into a relationship, and then you define it. Often, then only then is it defined as a relationship. But the relationships are like, even when you're dating, that is a relationship. Like that's a type of relationship. So the definition that I found was a way two or more things are connected. All right. So simply, like that's a relationship. The way two or more things are connected. So a question to you. Can I ask him a question? I think
yes, of course.
So here's a question to you guys. Which is the most important relationship for you to understand? Who would like to have it? I mean, you can be wrong. It's fine.
I'm gonna go. For me, it's with myself.
Absolutely. Yeah. There you go. So that's the most important relationship for you to understand. And one of the things that I've come to understand is like my relationship and our relationships that we have to ourselves and to others is derived from the relationship that we had towards our parental figures when we were growing up, the core masculine and the core feminine. And I'm starting the conversation here because you're going to see like that is a really key aspect to understand in terms of how to maintain your true self, whether you're dating or in a relationship. It's really important to understand that, like, what is your relationship to yourself and where does that come from? Because as defined, a relationship is a way two or more things are connected. So what is this relationship to self that somehow one is connected back to one, and we're just looking at that? But often people don't consider this, and this has a massive impact. So in my work with men, there's a really cool exercise that I do where I take them through a process of really understanding their relationship to the masculine and the relationship to the feminine in their lives. And it's amazing how when we go through this, it really shows them where, like, what their sort of strengths and weaknesses are when it comes to dating. Because like there's so often we come across men who their relationship to the masculine is one where they feel angry, or they feel the masculine energy is chaotic, is angry. So then if their relationship to the masculine is one that is like, oh my God, like the masculine energy is domineering, and then for themselves they're like, I don't want to be that. So I don't want to be that. Or if the relationship to the feminine is like, oh, that's a bit chaotic, or it's a bit random, I don't really understand it, and then if part of them doesn't want to be that, then in ourselves we have these traits, the masculine and the feminine, and then we can shy away from these energies, which is really important because that these energies are what make up our uniqueness. So we get a very dominant masculine men, and we also get dominant feminine men. And we get the same for women. Some women are more masculine, some women are more feminine. And overall, people look at men and go, okay, that's a masculine archetype, and then women are a feminine archetype. But actually, we see in reality, we wouldn't have to look very far to find examples of people who are men, but they're more effeminate, and we've got women who are women, and they're more masculine, right? And it's just the way, I think it's a beautiful way in which humans come about, and we have this nice mix. But often, when we never consider our relationship to that parental masculine and feminine, we never really see what drives us towards one or the other. And so with one particular client, what he realized was that he was really shunning away from being in his dominant masculine, and how that then impacted him on dates. Like he felt like he had to force that it wasn't a natural element for him. And then when he realized it was because he really feared that energy, that he really didn't want to go there. But then it meant that in his relationships he wasn't leading. And from a higher perspective, that's what's available in the masculine, is leadership, is taking care. And so it's a really important point. Now, the next thing is, and this is why I was mentioning my upbringing. And the next thing is authority. And authority is an interesting one because, again, growing up, your parental figures, whoever they are, they would have bestowed authority in some way on you. So the definition of authority is the power or right to give orders, make decisions, and enforce obedience. And so who is your authority, right? So growing up, like I said, affected by your parents. But like by show of hands, like who here had a closer relationship to their dad? And who here had a closer relationship to their mum? Yeah.
Vanessa has a closer relationship with all of them.
Yeah. And you see already, like, this is an interesting thing because often we don't have the close relationship to the one that was more authoritarian, and then that kind of gives you an indication of like which energy you most shy away from. But this thing about authority, again, now bringing it back to dating. So if the authority was typically the father, then in your dating, you might find, like, especially for women who are dating men, you might find, or even if you're dating women, that you're attracting more that dominant masculine energy that replicates that relationship that you had with your father. And it's just one of these things about being human. We live life on a linear time frame, right? So it's just like, you're born, you go through life, and now you're here. And everything that happened in between impacts how you think and feel about your current relationship. And left unchecked, that will continue to be the case. So the thing is with authority is so many of us, we are seeking relationships, not realizing that we're establishing a relationship based on the authority patterns of who was our authority when we were growing up. And so, and how that comes about. And this is key now when it comes to how to stay true to yourself, because if you don't realize that part of you when you're going into dating or even in a relationship that you are seeking to recreate that dynamic of authority, then that's going to overtake your desire of being free and just doing what it is that you want to do. So in my relationship with my parents, like, my father was very authoritarian, and so that was very much on the dominant masculine. And so then automatically I'm like, oh, I don't want to be that guy. I'm like, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be this way. But then the way it used to impact me largely is like by avoiding conflict, by not wanting to bring about like, oh, this is what I want, by not wanting to come across as that person who has authority, who's like, this is my way. Because that was my only example of it. It was my only illustration of growing up and seeing like this is how it is. This is the masculine role.
This is what a man is.
Yeah, and that was my only way of seeing it. And so I didn't have any other examples. So for me, it was like, oh, I want to be that way. And then I'm left kind of like out there trying to figure it out, but at the same time, not willing to go into the dominant masculine or into my leadership. And it becomes a blurred line, because then it's like, well, I want to lead, but I don't want to do that. But then what do you do? Because you've never actually questioned it. It just becomes a natural instinct, an emotion, an action drive by an emotion. So I've defined relationship and I've defined authority. And so you can see there is a relationship that you have with the authority that is out there in the world and that is in you, right? So there's one more definition, and that is sovereign. And sovereign is an interesting idea, and it's something that all of us are innate. It's once you're an adult, you're sovereign in the sense that the definition that I have here is, the ones that I found, I've mixed two together, is a supreme ruler and acting independently and without outside interference. So sovereign is to basically be independent. When you move into adulthood and out of childhood, you become independent. and without outside interference. That's not to say that you don't listen to other people or you don't take on board advice, whatever, but you're acting independently. You're using your own thought and you're moving forward with that. And this is really key, because this is where now a lot of relationships, based on the other things I've said about authority and the masculine and feminine, where people lose sight of what it is that they would like in favor of something else, not realizing that they have the power to create what it is that they want. So a quick example would be, we'll get this a lot in relationships, where people say, oh, I wanted to do X, but my partner wouldn't let me. Like I feel like my partner doesn't agree with me on that, doesn't want me to do that, so I'm not gonna do it. And that goes both ways, whether it's the man or the woman, that can come up. And to act independently is to know that actually, if there is something that I desire or that I want to create in my life, then, and it's true, and it's really true for me, then I should have that space and that freedom to go for it. So that's a bit of like I suppose the foundation of understanding what it is to be like sovereign, right? It's a relationship to yourself. You are your own authority, and if you don't start with that basis, then it's very easy to get lost in this world of like, oh, but this other person is their fault. They're the reason why that I can't do what I want to do, or I don't have the power. It's like that. But it's not. Like, the thing is, by nature of being an adult, you are acting independently and without outside interference, and that's key. So I'll just pause there for a second if there's any questions anyone has about anything I've just said before I move on to the next bit.
Guys, but I have a question. I'm keeping the video off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because I can barely hear anything. So regarding the you were talking about the who you're closer to, mother or father and stuff, and I didn't see the other girls because I can't see, but isn't it like usually the girls closer to the mother only because it's kind of same gender, and like when the girl kind of hits puberty, it's really hard for you to stay close to your father because he's a man, and there's that kind of boundary. So regardless of whether or not the person's like an authority, do you think that it's just because you're the same gender and that's probably why you're closer to your father versus your mother, and vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously what you've said there plays a role, but what I'm referring to here, because you also get there's a lot, hence the term, I don't mean to offend anyone because if they find it offensive, but there's a term like mummy's boy, for example. That's a very common phrase, and that supersedes the biological factor. And often people know the phrase daddy's girl. So there's like this reason, there's this dichotomy of the two relationships.
But don't you think, for example, like I'm daddy's girl, yeah. So I'm an example of that, and like my dad is like in love with me, but like, and he thinks I'm an extension of him. So he sees, basically he thinks that I am him, but I obviously, as a female, and there's all these different boundaries. I'm like, no, but I'm closer to my mom. So I mean, what I'm saying is, like, sometimes the parent might think that they're close to you, but then you're actually like, no, I'm closer to the other one. And in some, like, now that I'm getting older, I'm actually getting closer to my dad than I am to my mum. So it kind of can change. I'm just being devil's advocate and just asking.
So what I'm referring to is mostly to be like the early beginnings of it, right? So when you're and hence when because I refer to like the parental energies, in the sense of like whoever played that role, because sometimes it's more than just your parents as well, and it's those early representations of masculine and feminine, and the thing to understand is not so much about like who are you closest to, but actually what does that mean in yourself. So then and like, so there's a lot of guys that probably because it's a reflection of me, a lot of guys that I work with who their relationship to the masculine is very negative, so that they don't want to do it. They don't feel comfortable in that energy. And then I know that there are women who don't feel comfortable in their feminine energy, right? And that really messes with them, how comfortable they feel in life just showing up. And the thing is, we both we all, sorry, not both, we all have both energies, like to different degrees, and I think that's a beautiful thing that really makes up our personalities. So to answer your question, Hala, is to understand that actually, yeah, regardless of which one you favor the most, and if your dad loves you the most now, it's more to do with like, well, how did that impact your relationship? And it's a good question because it summarizes what I've been talking about. And it's like, how does that impact your relationship to yourself? And then how does that manifest in dating and relationships? Yeah, because you know, for me, my mom was a strong woman. And so, you know, lo and behold, you know, I'm engaged to a strong woman. Like, and I think, but then, you know, also being aware that there's part of me that is willing to let go of control and be like, oh, I'll just let her lead. I'll just let her do something, right? But that doesn't serve me and my sovereignty and in what I want to do. If I live that way, I can become very bitter because then it's like, well, you know, I let her do what she wanted to do. I don't get what I wanted to get out of the relationship. I don't get to do what I want to do. And then I play this whole performance on my side, which has got nothing to do with her. It's totally inside my sphere. And this is a bonus point, which is not part of this particular presentation, but like she will be doing her own performance in her head on this side. And that has nothing to do with me. And then we both somehow interact together. We're like both these two universes having this performance and dance together, despite being in separate worlds. And it's basically what it is. It's like hers feeds mine and mine feeds hers. So, and it's just this weird thing that the more you get into a relationship, the more you can see it, and it blows your mind. You're like, how are we living? How are we even living?
Yeah, it's about my story is very similar to your story in the sense that my father was a very strong, dominant, masculine who I felt never allowed me to do what it was that I wanted, and so I wasn't allowed to be who I was, and so in my head I have this, you know, false relationship with Ahmad whereby I'm constantly blaming him for me not being able to do what I want to do, and then eventually it becomes so frustrating that, you know, I had to have a chat with myself and I had to look at it objectively and be like, okay, is he actually not allowing me to do what I want? Like, is he actually stopping me? Is he like putting out tantrums if I want to go out or do this or do my own thing? And I was like, no, he's not telling me not to go for what it is that I want. And if anything, he supports me whenever it is that I go for my own thing. So really, that was just my own expectation of what the man in my life is and what he does to me, and, you know, playing victim and all of that. So having that awareness is just bloody amazing because I mean, imagine the amount of conflict that it saves me inside and outside, and you know, and for him, like, but I'm not telling you not to do stuff, but me blaming him, like that would cause a lot of issues for us, and a lot of resentment and frustration and all of that. So being aware of my relationship to the masculine while being in this relationship is really amazing.
Yeah, that's a really good illustration, and it does bring up another bonus point, which I think is really important for everyone to understand about relationships. Is there's no point trying to be perfect. Like there's this, like, you know, so often we try and read all these like top tips and things to get. So we want to go into a relationship, we want to like get it right. We want to go in there and make sure we make no mistakes. And in my experience, it's just not how it works. It's just not how relationships work. It's not I can't say that's the point of relationships or that's the meaning of life or whatever, right? But in relationships, it's like this dynamic, this stuff that we're discovering is because we have this awareness, firstly, of ourselves that we can monitor and go, oh, well, I know my bullshit. Yeah. And so she knows her bullshit. And then so when we're playing it out, we can then go, hang on a sec, like this is just my bullshit.
Yeah.
And it's inside of the relationship that we've been able to grow, not like me off on my own like figuring this thing out and then coming back.
That's a great point, because there's a lot of people who think they need to fix themselves before they can go into a relationship. But you go into a relationship and you create a relationship while being aware, and you grow as that relationship grows. Like, I don't think I've stopped growing just because I'm in a relationship. If anything, like, it takes a lot more awareness to be in this relationship. So don't think that you have to first get these things sorted in order for you to then be in a relationship. I think it's even more beautiful to share that journey with someone where you have the space in your relationship to grow and to learn more about yourself and to share what's going on for you.
Yeah, and so the thing that I've been discussing here is because often people are looking for tips. They want to know that the way they can get things perfect. And then I feel like I disappoint them when I start talking about like foundational concepts that I feel really make a difference as you move forward. Like, if you build a boat a certain way, it's going to last a lot longer when it's on sea, as opposed to if you just go out there on a rickety raft and then hope for the best, right? So, like having this focus, I'm talking to you about the masculine, the feminine, the parental authority. I'm acutely aware that so many people are not aware that this is what's impacted their relationships today. This is what has gone into the pot and made them who they are, and how they interact with the opposite sex or with whoever they're attracted to, right? Like it's obvious, but because we live going forwards, we rarely look backwards to go, hang on a sec, like that shit happened, it must have impacted me. And this is why I mentioned about my upbringing, because that had a huge impact on who I am today. So moving on to the next point, which is, okay, all of this foundation in place, like how do I stay true to myself? And this is what's great for you guys is obviously, you're coaching with Chloé, and she teaches you about, knowing what you love. And that's a primary thing. If like, how can you go out and live your life if you don't know what it is that you actually love and want to do? And I'm a firm believer that is what life is about. We're here to have a unique experience, our own experience. Whatever you're doing is part of your experience. Like even right now, this is part of your experience. This is part of your life and who you are. And knowing what you love is so key, because that often won't change. It might adapt and evolve in a relationship. But if one of your biggest loves is art, for example, I know some of you here, if not all of you here, have a fascination with art. And if that's true, then it would still be true in a relationship. And however you choose to pursue that, is part of you. You'd bring that to the relationship. It becomes part of the relationship. Chloé recently started doing art, so all of her art stuff was all over the table. It became part of the house. It became part of the relationship.
It became part of the relationship.
It became part of the relationship. She's an artist now. It's just so.
But it's true for me.
Yeah.
Why is your shit all over the table? Because it's true for me.
Yeah, literally. And if my shit's all over the table, then it's a problem. But if it's art and it's true, then it's okay. But you see, that's the thing, and it's like knowing what you love is, and this is something else that we teach guys a lot. Is they're learning conversational tips, this, that, and the other. But it's who you are that's dating, that's in a relationship. Like I'm into sports, parkour. I'm into the podcasting. That that's not separate to my relationship. That impacts my relationship. When I'm with Chloé, sometimes I've got to schedule around it. What are you doing this time? I'm recording a podcast, or I'm going to a parkour class. Like this is part of my life. It feeds in. So knowing what you love is key. Otherwise, if you don't know that, then that's having an awareness of where you place your authority is one thing, but having an awareness of what you love is going to be another thing, because those two go hand in hand. Then you can really direct yourself.
Yeah, because if you know what you love but you have no authority, then you're not actually going to go for it. And if you have your own authority but you don't know what you love, then you're just going to be a dominant authority and just do random stuff.
Yeah. And I was thinking earlier about purpose as well, and this is kind of about purpose as well, but you know, what you love doesn't have to always be like this massive purpose, right? It can be other things that you just enjoy, but then, you know, whether it's cooking, I don't know why I get all these examples: cooking, knitting. someone here, someone cooking and knitting. MMA fighting, boxing, yeah.
Car racing.
Yeah, car racing.
Yeah.
CrossFit. so yeah. It's so important that you know it, and then going back to what I was saying about relationship and authority is like that you go, okay, this is my life. I'm gonna do these things. This is part of who I am. All right, and the thing is about that, right? That is a certain sense of confidence, and it's fucking attractive. Like, yeah, there may be guys out there or women out there, whomsoever, who may be challenged by the idea that you're enamored with what you're doing and what you're about. But, you know, why would you care for those people if they are challenging, like, well, this is in a dating sense, right? Like, you know, if you're going to meet someone and they're not comfortable with the fact that you're very confident in who you are and living your life, then there's a clear indication there that there's something there that they need to deal with, right? This is nothing wrong with you, because sometimes people say that, do men like it when a woman is confident? Well, yeah, there's loads of men, they want that. They want a woman who is confident, who she knows what she's up to, she's living her life, and she actually has something to bring to the relationship, right? And it's the same for a man. A man who's living his life, he brings something to a relationship, so that the two of you together are bigger than the sum of the whole is bigger than the two individual parts, or something like that. Something like that. You can edit in the proper quote. but it's that idea that you actually come with you come to a relationship feeling like, you know what, you're pretty awesome on your own, like in what you're doing. Like, you don't come to a relationship thinking someone else is going to fix you, or that you need to fix them.
Yeah, or that you need somebody else to complete you. That is the biggest mistake. I've lived my life on that basis for many years, and I can definitely tell you that it doesn't work, because the other person is never going to complete you, and you're never going to complete the other person. It's a never fulfilling cup. It's the cup that has no end. And so, yeah, you should learn how to be happy on your own, in order to really be able to deal with being in a relationship. Really.
Yeah, there is a lot about that in what I've said. It's really about understanding yourself, living in a way that then when you are in a relationship, you're very free, as opposed to feeling like you're having to give more than you can, or that you're dependent on them, or they're dependent on you, and that brings a real sucky energy. Like initially it's like, oh, it's amazing I'm needed, or it's amazing they need me, or whatever. But then after a while it's like, oh my god, they're leaning on me too much. Oh my god, I wish I had my own space. It's like, so, you know, it's that sort of thing, right? So then the next thing I want to say about staying true to yourself is know your boundaries and your limits. And this is a huge one, I find, especially with a lot of women that I talk to who are having issues around dating or in a relationship. It's and even with guys actually as well, to be fair, it's around boundaries and limits. So boundaries are like okay, this is my protected space, this is what I'm doing, this is what I need, this is, you know, and limits is a bit different, where, because this is something that's come up in a few women I've spoken to, and it's like, limits is like going, what are you willing to accept and not accept? Like, and a limit is a limit, right? Once that limit is passed, it's not like, oh, I'm going to see where this goes still, maybe it will come back down, right? And this would be to say, I mean, the only example I can think of is someone that Chloé and I have spoken to not long ago, and they were sharing some of the messages that they were receiving on dating apps. And some of them were quite crass and lewd. And it was like, okay, in my world, I just would have excommunicated that person. But in this particular person's world, they were like, oh, let me just talk to them some more. like I'm not like, well, why? Like, why would you? It didn't make sense to me, right? Like, and I'm sure there's reasons why they would do that. But in terms of like staying true to yourself, well, that's what this conversation is about right now, is like, well, know your boundaries. Like, okay, this is something I need for myself. This is what I need time to go go-karting. I need time to write and do my work. that like, you know, I need my space on this time just to think, whatever. Know your boundaries, and then know your limits. Things are like, look, this is just not for me. That this behavior or this way or this communication or, you know, whatever, this is just not for me. And you know, not crossing that limit. And the final point on the staying true to yourself, and this is huge and probably the hardest one, I think, for most people, is communicating your boundaries and enforcing your boundaries.
That's so tough.
Yeah.
I mean, that has been a tough exercise for me, and I'm much better now. But you know, I think that's the hard, because you can have a lot of insights about yourself and know your boundaries and all of that, but communicating that with the world and being clear on that with others, that can, for me, that has brought up a lot of inner conflict and tension, and I don't want to upset others, I don't want to upset the person I'm in the relationship with, and or facing the risk of perhaps losing some people because of my boundaries and because of me enforcing my boundaries. But I have to say that you take the courage to go ahead with that, and in the end it's very rewarding, because you'll find that people actually respect you a lot more. You also respect yourself a lot more, and whomever did not correspond with your vibe, and whoever wasn't meant to be around you, very quickly falls off, and it's a great time saver, because you're not wasting your time with people who actually don't correspond to who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So the final thing I want to discuss, just to close on this, or to relate to you guys, is a little 3 points on dealing with men. Just 3 points. And so if these are things that I've observed in myself or in others and other men, and it's just like 3 things to be aware of as women, that I think men respond to quite well, and I have alluded to them in the previous sections. And so number 1 is structure. It's like having a very good structure about what it is that you're doing, what you're up to. So it's almost like it's that logical side. A lot of men do fall into that logical thinking. It's like step by step, right? And so then having a nice structure to the plan, to the week, to whatever idea that you're conveying, really helps us to understand. The other thing is clarity, and I think that really comes through in communication. So there's 3 points here. So first one's structure, second one's clarity. So clarity, you know, really taking the time to be clear and about what it is that you're communicating, what it is that you want, what it is that you're planning or thinking of. And the final one, which I've alluded to before already, is confidence. And this one is huge. Like I feel like as men, and actually, to be fair, I say men so much, but really, as much as I focus on men's work and I do a lot for men, I'm all about being human, right? And I think this is something that humans respond to, is confidence, is that leadership, that sense of groundedness in what you're doing. It's like any time you come across someone who's a leader, it doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman, you're inspired in a particular way, and it's almost intangible. There's something, it kind of like a button it pushes that just makes people feel relaxed. So structure, clarity, and confidence is a great sort of framework for dealing with men. So how that might look, right, in dating, is you're clear from the outset when someone is talking to you about like what it is that you're looking for. Yeah. And what you want out of dating, whether that's to be chill and to get to know people and to have fun, or if you're looking for something long term, and how that looks. Clarity, right? And part of clarity, one of the 3 points, is it comes with boundaries. Like that's being clear. Yeah. You're communicating. You're saying this is what I want, and don't muddy that. Don't say one thing and then come back and say, oh, okay, but I'll do this other thing as well, because you know that's what makes that is what makes you happy. That, you see, depending on who you're dealing with, you know, that just opens the door to all sorts of drama and misbehavior, in a sense of like people going, well, actually, you have no boundary. Yeah, you have no.
You say this, but really, you don't really enforce it. So.
Yeah. and that comes with action, you know, that. And then confidence is again enforcing that boundary, is saying, hey, like, this is what I want, this is what I'm willing to put up with. And it really does instill to the right person, who's someone who has also traversed this path of understanding themselves, their authority and their sovereignty, would understand that, you know, it's not for me, it's in my relationship with Chloe, it's not for me to tell Chloe what to do. She is sovereign, she knows what to do, you know. If she wants advice, we can discuss it. But even in the advice, I don't all of a sudden become her authority. She will take from it and do what she's going to do. And in that way, we exist in a relationship where we're connected. You see, we're connected, we communicate. But I'm not like putting my opinions and leadership or whatever on top of her. She's deciding and free. And the same for me. So that is that. So to quickly recap then, just everything that I've discussed today, I started off by talking about your relationship, the importance of understanding what a relationship is. And the most important relationship is becoming aware of your relationship to yourself. I went into discussing about how that is largely based on the relationship that you have with the parental masculine and feminine growing up, and how that impacted your relationship to the masculine and feminine energies within yourself. Then we discussed authority and like, who is the authority? Because growing up, you know, the parents or the parental figures are the authority. But then as an adult, you become sovereign. You become acting independently without outside interference. And then what does that mean for staying true to yourself? Well, if you know what you love and you know your boundaries, and you're able to communicate your boundaries, then you can really start to exist in the world where you're like, right, I'm going for what I want, and I'm able to interact with others knowing that I'm doing what's good, right? Like I'm communicating, I'm doing what's true for me, and I'm going forward in a way that, in a structured way that I can go, right, okay, I know myself, I know what I'm about, I feel confident in what I'm doing, and I'm going for it. And then in regards to dealing with men in that way, is to be clear about what you want, clear about what you're about, enforcing, communicating your boundaries, and acting with confidence. So that is it. I will now open the floor to questions.
That was pretty clear direction. Yeah, thanks, Ahmad. Yeah, it was amazing. I don't have questions, at least not yet. Who knows, maybe I'll process this, wake up tomorrow with a million. But to be honest, it's quite clear and concise, and I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's your takeaway from this chat?
My takeaway, which actually keeps coming back, is just like having like communication. Really, it's all down to communication. As you said, we can have clear structures in our heads, but if we don't communicate them, they're useless.
Cool.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you said, like, your last point about the 3 pointers, structure, confidence and clarity, could you please elaborate that with an example?
Yeah, so I'm dealing with men here, so yeah, I can do. I'll do it with so structure, clarity and confidence. So I'm dealing with men. So the structure element, just to recap, so the structure element's about understanding that for most men, we're quite logical in how we're thinking, right? Like I know you work in business and stuff, so you would have come across this a million times, where like people are very like, right, okay, it's in the professional world, it's not all airy fairy. People want to have like a definite start, a definite end, how you know, what's the process, what's the outcome, where are we going? And it's just realizing that it's just like, in terms of communicating whatever it is, whether you want to date or you have a plan or something you want to communicate, it's like, okay, what is the structure that what is it like, what is that that tangible, it's almost like that tangible structure that I can say, this is what's going to happen. We're going to A, B, C, D, and E. I kind of did it with this, right? I've gone through and I've applied a structure to some different concepts, right? Clarity would be about communicating it. And then confidence is the confidence you have in yourself. So let's say with an example, I use this dating one that came up with this woman on the dating apps, and structure would be in this regard would be for her. This is a situation where she's on dating apps and sometimes she gets some lewd and crass messages from people, and then she's entertaining it, right? So structure would be for her to be outright and say in her communication is like, this is not like this, whatever this is not what I want, right? What I want, what I want is like, what I'm looking for is this. And then clarity is also part of that, right? I've separated the 2 points, but clarity is actually, she's just communicated that this is what I want, like this is what I'm after, and this is how I'm looking to get it. This is what, I'm using a dating app, so I'm looking to date some people. I'm not looking for some lewd and crass experiences. And then there's also in clarity is the idea of that she would enforce her boundary. She would say, look, this is completely off. So either by like deleting the person, blocking the person, telling them first, but then following those steps. Confidence is actually more to do with yourself and you and your relationship to yourself, but feeling free in your confidence. So going like, no, this is how I see things. This is what I believe I'm worthy of. This is what this is what's true, and really being at home with it.
Yeah, owning it.
Yeah. Whereas the opposite would be like, so the opposite is like in what's currently going on is like structure wise, it's like, well, anything gets through the net. Like anything gets through the net, right? Mm-hmm. And there's reasons we can explore that psychologically or whatever, but at the moment, structurally, anything's getting through the net, and she's not defining that structure. She's allowing it to she has defined it subconsciously, but she's allowing it to propagate. And then there's no clarity. Well, is this what you want or is this not what you want? Someone's offered you something, you say you don't want that, but then you continue to talk to them and entertain them despite
that's not clear.
Yeah, so that's very unclear. Confidence is lacking because then, well, if that's not what you want, then why do you continue to allow others to impose what they want on you and to continue to engage with people, despite the fact that coincidentally the other person has actually been structured, clear.
That's
structured,
funny,
clear, and confident in their lewd and crass behavior. Right? Like they've said, this is what I want. they've expressed it. Yeah. I'm not doing anything else. I'm not entering into anything else, and they're saying it confidently. The point I feel is the biggest here is, funnily enough, is confidence. I really feel that this is the biggest element here because I feel like so many women, it's not that they lack confidence, but often I think perhaps shy away from confidence when it comes to interacting with men, somewhere believing that that's not what a man wants, and most likely because of the dominant masculine energy, somewhere believing that that's being masculine and that's not what a man wants. But confidence is not to be mixed with being masculine.
Yeah, or the fear of losing your chances with someone that you really like. So if I can take our relationship as an example, when we first started dating, I was super clear on what is it that I was looking for, which was, I'm not looking for a relationship right now. I really enjoy spending time with you, and I'm happy to do that. However, I'm not saying never. Just now I need my space. I need to spend time with myself, and that's what I'm happy to give you. If you're happy with that, we can continue.
yeah, absolutely.
And then funny enough, it actually created a lot of trust in the relationship because he knew what the structure was, and I knew what the structure was, and I was clear in my communication about it, but I was also confident in my enforcing of the structure and said, no, this is the structure. And whenever he'd come to me and be like, oh, relationship, I was like, no, that's not what I'm looking for right now. And it can be difficult or like challenging. It was for me at some times because I started really liking him and be like, oh God, I don't want to risk losing him or you know, or creates a conflict with someone that I really like and stuff. But I just went all the way with what I felt was true for me. I'm not ready to be in a relationship. I'm learning to get to know you. I'm also learning about myself right now. You know, this is what I want. You know, and also being clear that I do want a relationship eventually, but it's just right now I need my space, you know. And for him, I think it created a very clear structure, and it gave him the ability to trust me that whatever I was saying was what he was gonna get. There was no, you know, there was no switches and changes and then trying to convince me, because that was that. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it's true that was the case, and definitely you see the confidence like that Chloe displayed and she had in herself and what she wanted, and it's you see, it wasn't forceful, it wasn't domineering. It just was her boundary. It was just like, this is what I'm after, this, and really just being like completely, you know, people often use the word unattached in a sense, and it's like this sense of just being very like, you know, this is what I want, and I'm very clear and confident in that right now. I'm not willing to breach that. And you know, and I think a word that comes to my mind then is it demands respect, like in its own way. Chloe didn't demand respect. It was her behavior that then called upon it, like, oh, okay, like, right, okay, this is what you want. Like, there's no sneaky, there's no like, oh, can I somehow, you know, wangle my way in there, foot in the door business. Like, it's just, this is what it is. Very clear, very confident. So yeah, does that, I think it does. I think that
does that answer your question? That was a long answer.
Yeah, double answer.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions before we complete? Or takeaway? Hala?
No, so I have, you know, I always have questions, but I'm not. It's gonna be long, so maybe we talk about it later. But the main takeaway, and because this connection is shit, I don't know what's wrong. Anyway, the main takeaway I have is dance. So, like, I'm seeing someone at the moment, and like last week, I was in my head about like, you know, is he playing mind games? Is he doing this? Is he doing that? And blah blah blah. And you know, and because I'm so used to, like, in the past, my experiences have been very mind game focused, and I'm like, and I was tempted to again engage in these mind games and you know, go back to that kind of train wreck mode. But like, I kind of pulled, well, with Chloe and Chloe's help, and also just me being like, you know what, let me try something different, because he's a nice guy, so let me just, you know, give him the benefit of the doubt. And then he actually was finishing work at 10 p.m. every night. So, and we had we chatted on the phone, and we're seeing each other tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of it is, like you said, it's that dance that you're having, because he's got his own shit and I've got my own shit. And I think that was the main takeaway of like, you know, stop assuming that this person's out to get you, or like he's sitting there trying to, like, you know, make your life hell or whatever. It's like he's got his own stuff, and don't put all the baggage of the past onto that person, right? So I think that's my main, the dance thing. I mean, I totally get the structure, clarity and confidence, and I think those three are amazing, and specifically the clarity, because a lot of times we don't communicate what we want. We're just like, he should know, you know, and I still do that, and so this kind of Yeah, so I mean, even in my head, like, you know, he asked me out, he's like, you're more than welcome to join. In my head, I was like, more than welcome to join? Why is he saying that? I want to see you, kind of thing, right? So I'm like, you know, but I need to obviously tell that. I need to tell him, listen, I don't like it when you say more than welcome to join, and that's it. And then he'll get the message. But in my head, I'm just like, but he's a guy, he should know that. But again, he's got his own experiences and stuff. So yeah, so that's my two cents.
That's a really good one, and actually that's one of my favorite points. It's something that could be a talk in itself, and it's about like how it goes back to the awareness that I was talking about right at the start. Like this awareness of like the relationship that you have to yourself and the dynamic of your authority, like who's your authority, the masculine, the feminine, in yourself. How do you relate to that? What's your relationship to the authority? Because that comes up even if it's not being triggered or even if in the real world that's not there, because we're so used to it, in our minds we're preempting it. We're like, he just said XYZ, motherfucker. Like, why? How dare he? And then in his world, the funniest things at times is like, so where I see this happen so often is like, okay, if I take myself as an example, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to avoid upsetting Chloé, right? But then I end up acting a way that upsets her, and it's not in the way that I imagine, because in her world, she's like expecting me to act a particular way, and then I act that way, right? So it's like two universes trying to fulfill their own storyline, like, and so then this random drama occurs. So with what you've just said, Harlow, it's like, you're in your world going, right, he better not play fucking mind games with me. And then his world, he's like, right, I don't want to. And maybe in his world, he's like, yeah, I don't want to upset her. I don't want to be too imposing, or something like that. So then he's like, hey, if you're free, come join me. If you're free, you're like, what the fuck's this? Does he not want to spend time with me? Like, like what the fuck's he saying? If you're free, I'm free. Like, I got shit to do.
Feel free to join.
Yeah, feel free to. What am I? His dog? Like. So, and that's the thing, is like in when you become aware of it, and that's why awareness is so key, is you start to realize that there is a pattern that plays out that isn't actually real. Like Chloé shared very vulnerably about how she was like, is Ahmad stopping me? Because somewhere in her pattern, it's like in the masculine stops her from doing what she wants to do and she's allowed to do. And so in her head, it's like, well, that thing he did, was that him trying to stop me? Was that? And then eventually it's like, I'm just out there washing the dishes, doing whatever I'm doing, just like whatever. And I'm
like, he's stopping me.
Yeah.
He's stopping me.
But then in reality, I'm just like, you want to go to Corfu for a month? Okay, that's interesting. Like, I don't know if I'd be like super excited about it, but at the same time, if that's what you want to do, that's what you should do. But you see, then internally, at least to begin with, the belief system has such a strong hold that it's difficult for us to see that it's not actually happening in the real world, that it's just in our heads that we're going, oh my God, this is happening. Like I used to have a continual fear that in a relationship that the other person was going to leave me for something that I'm going to fuck up, so then I'm walking around expecting that that's eventually going to happen, right? So everything, any argument, it's like, oh fuck, and here it is, here it comes, it's going to happen. And then eventually, over time and maturity, I realized that's not how relationships work. It's not like, you're in a relationship and then one day, boom, it's just like everything's fine and just like, it's not how it is. So it's a really interesting thing. We all do live in our own individual universes in our heads, having a very separate experience. And we think we superimpose our beliefs on the world around us, and we think that's reality. We don't see reality objectively.
Yeah, we think that everyone functions the same way.
Yeah, we don't see that perhaps that guy, he's really busy and he thinks that you're really busy, and he's like, what, like, you're busy, I'm busy, I'm free now. You're welcome to join if you're free. Like, I'm just giving you another perspective. That's not necessarily the truth perspective. It's just another one, right? But no matter what he does, if you always come from that lens, like anything he does, like good things, bad things, like they all get tarnished with the same mind game brush. If it's a positive thing, why is it a positive? Why is he buying gifts?
Why did he buy me flowers?
Yeah, what's that about? Yeah. Yeah, motherfucker. Like, what's that? Are you trying to get around me with flowers?
What did you do wrong?
And then everything becomes that. It's a fascinating thing when you start to realize that somehow we, even as human beings, actually are able to communicate and get along.
Able to get along? Yeah.
When we have these separate worlds. So thanks, Harla. Thanks for opening that up.
So thank you so much for joining us. And I hope this was an enlightening and insightful conversation with Ahmad. Ahmad, thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be putting this on YouTube, so you can review it if you feel like you've missed anything.
Yeah, and just to finish off from my side, I'd say I know a few of you have heard my podcast, Authentic Dating Series. Website is www.authenticdatingseries.com. And there is so much stuff like this sort of
Conversation.
yeah, this sort of conversation, these sort of theories, but like we look at dating from all angles and lots and lots of useful information.
Yeah.
And the thing as well, we focus on men, but literally our Instagram is like 60% women. For some reason, what we talk about, women love it, and so men, you should really take a hint there. That if women love what we're doing, then probably it's a good
Then
thing.
you should listen to them.
Yeah, you should check it out. And any suggestions, any questions for men or women, you know, we're happy to.
Well, thank you, it was amazing.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
stay.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.